I rebooted the router, and her gaze made me question everything. I was just trying to be a good roommate, helping out my buddy Sean's family by fixing their Wi-Fi. Simple tech support, right? Plug some cables, reset the box, get out. But then his mom, Diane, looked at me, really looked at me, and said, "I see you," in this way that made my skin crawl. It wasn't just a thank you. It was like she saw something in me I didn't even know was there, something I wasn't ready for anyone to see. That moment flipped everything upside down, and I'm still trying to figure out what she meant, why it hit me so hard, and why I can't shake the feeling that I'm hiding something from Sean. Let me take you back to how it all started, because this is the kind of story that sounds innocent until you're in too deep, and by then, you're not sure if you're the one making it complicated or if it was never simple to begin with. Sean and I had been roommates for about a year, sharing a cramped, overpriced apartment near campus while we both slogged through our final semesters. He's the kind of guy who's always got your back, helping with rent when I was short, dragging me to parties when I'd rather stay in and binge some show, or just shooting the breeze over late-night pizza when I needed to vent. We met in a chem lab freshman year, bonding over our mutual hatred of balancing equations and a shared obsession with old-school punk rock. He's loud, messy, the kind of guy who leaves dishes in the sink for days but makes up for it with a dumb grin and a round of beers. We'd gotten close enough that I didn't just think of him as a roommate, he was like a brother, the kind of friend you'd call at 3 a.m. when your car breaks down, and he'd show up, no questions asked. His family lived about an hour away, in this quiet suburb with big lawns, cul-de-sacs, and houses that all looked like they belonged on a postcard. I'd been to their place a few times, barbecues in the summer, a random Sunday dinner when Sean dragged me along, and they were always welcoming, like I was part of the crew. His mom, Diane, was in her late 40s, maybe early 50s, with this sharp, quiet energy about her. Not loud like Sean, but present. Like she could walk into a room and you'd feel it without looking up. She'd always been nice to me, asking about my classes, cracking dry jokes about Sean's laundry habits or his inability to cook anything that didn't come from a box. I never thought much of it. She was just his mom, you know. Someone who made sure we didn't starve and always had a spare bed if we needed it. Until she wasn't. It was a Saturday afternoon, one of those lazy spring days where the air's warm but not sticky yet. Sean got a call from his dad, sounding frantic, saying their Wi-Fi had been down for days and the whole house was losing their minds. His little sister, Mia, was freaking out because she couldn't stream her shows, and his dad was hopeless with anything more complicated than a remote control. Sean's not much better. He once tried to fix our microwave by unplugging it and plugging it back in, like that was some kind of magic trick. But he knew I'd messed around with computers in high school, fixing laptops for extra cash, tweaking software for friends who didn't know their way around a hard drive. "Dude, you're a genius with this stuff," he said, tossing me a soda from the fridge, the can cold against my palm. "Come with me to my parents' place, fix their router, and I'll owe you big time. Mom's making her famous chili." I wasn't thrilled about spending my Saturday troubleshooting Wi-Fi instead of catching up on sleep or scrolling through Reddit, but Sean had a way of making you feel like you were saving the day, and chili sounded a hell of a lot better than the instant ramen in our cupboard. So I grabbed my laptop, threw on a hoodie, and we headed out, the hour-long drive filled with Sean's bad singing along to the radio and stories about his latest attempt to impress some girl at a bar. Their house was exactly what you'd expect from a suburban family, big, a little dated, with family photos crowding the walls and a fridge covered in magnets from vacations and Mia's old school projects. Diane greeted us at the door, all smiles, her hair pulled back in a loose ponytail, wearing jeans and a sweater that looked too nice for a Saturday. "You're a lifesaver," she said, her voice warm but with this edge I couldn't quite place, like she was sizing me up. Sean's dad was in the living room, cursing at the TV that wouldn't connect to Netflix, his voice booming through the house. Mia was sprawled on the couch, whining about her TikTok streak being ruined, her phone clutched like it was her lifeline. It was chaos, but the kind of chaos that felt familiar, like I was part of it, like I belonged. Diane led me to the router in the den, a cluttered room with bookshelves stuffed with old novels and a desk piled with papers, bills, and a couple of coffee mugs. "It's been acting up all week," she said, pointing to the blinking box in the corner. I tried unplugging it, but no luck. I nodded, already in problem-solving mode, and got to work, checking cables, rebooting the system, running diagnostics on my laptop while Sean and his dad argued about football in the next room. It didn't take long to figure out the issue. The router was ancient, one of those clunky models from a decade ago, barely holding a signal, and the settings were a complete mess, default passwords, outdated firmware, the works. I reset it, updated the firmware, and set up a new network password, my fingers flying over the keyboard as I tried to ignore the fact that Diane was still there, hovering nearby. She wasn't pushy, not like some people who stand over your shoulder and ask a million questions, but she was curious. She leaned against the desk, arms crossed, asking things like, "How do you know what to do?" or, "Did you teach yourself all this?" Her voice was casual, but there was this intensity in her eyes, like she was studying me, picking up on every little move. It wasn't creepy, not exactly, but it made me hyper-aware of myself, my hands on the keyboard, the way my hoodie was probably wrinkled, the fact that I hadn't shaved in a couple of days. I shrugged off her questions, mumbled something about it being no big deal, but I could feel her watching me, not just watching but seeing, like she was peeling back layers I didn't even know I had. I finished up, tested the connection, and sure enough, the Wi-Fi was back. Mia cheered from the living room, her voice piercing through the walls, and Sean's dad shouted a thanks, like I'd just performed brain surgery. I was ready to pack up and head to the kitchen for that chili, but Diane didn't move. She just stood there, her eyes locked on mine in a way that made my stomach twist, my pulse kicking up a notch. "I see you," she said, her voice low, almost a whisper. "You're good at this. Really good." I froze. It wasn't just what she said, but how she said it, like it wasn't about the Wi-Fi at all. Like she was talking about something deeper, something I didn't understand. My heart skipped a beat, and I laughed it off, saying something dumb like, "Just a router, no big deal," my voice cracking a little. But her smile didn't waver, and her eyes stayed on me, sharp and knowing, like she'd caught me in a lie I hadn't even told. I grabbed my laptop, my hands clumsier than usual, and bolted for the kitchen, my face hot, my mind racing. What the hell was that? Was she just being nice, impressed with my tech skills? Or was there something else in her tone, something I wasn't supposed to notice but did? I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd missed something, that her words meant more than I could process, like a puzzle piece that didn't fit. Dinner was fine, or at least it seemed fine on the surface. Sean's dad told bad dad jokes that made everyone groan. Mia showed us some dance video she was obsessed with, her phone screen flashing as she scrolled through comments. Sean kept trying to rope me into a debate about whether we should get a dog for the apartment, saying it'd be sick to have a pit bull, while I argued we'd never clean up after it. Diane was her usual self, serving chili, laughing at Sean's stories, asking me about my classes like she always did. But every time I looked at her, I'd catch her glancing back, and it wasn't just a casual look. It was like she was trying to figure me out, like she'd seen something in me that I didn't even know was there. I kept my head down, focused on my bowl, scooping up chili like it was my job, but my heart was pounding, and I couldn't stop thinking about what she'd said in the den. "I see you." What did that mean? Was it just a weird way of saying thanks, a quirky phrase that didn't land right? Or was there something else going on, something that made my chest tight every time I thought about it? I felt like I was under a microscope, like every word I said, every move I made, was being weighed, measured, judged. When we got back to the apartment that night, Sean was all hyped up, thanking me for saving the day, saying his mom thought I was some kind of tech wizard. "She was going on about how you're gonna be the next Elon Musk or something," he said, laughing as he flopped onto the couch. I forced a grin, muttered something about it being no big deal, but inside, I was a mess. That phrase, "I see you," kept echoing in my head, like a song stuck on repeat, impossible to shake. I couldn't sleep that night, just lay there staring at the ceiling, the glow of streetlights sneaking through the blinds. I kept replaying the moment in the den, her voice, her eyes, the way the air felt heavier when she spoke. I told myself I was overthinking it, that it was just a weird moment, nothing more. Maybe she was just impressed, maybe she was just being nice, maybe I was reading too much into a throwaway comment. But deep down, I wasn't so sure. There was something about the way she'd looked at me, like she'd peeled back a layer I didn't even know I had, like she'd seen something I wasn't ready for anyone to see. And the worst part? I didn't hate it. I didn't hate the way it made me feel, seen, noticed, like I was more than just Sean's roommate, more than just the guy who fixed the Wi-Fi. And that scared the hell out of me, because it felt like I was stepping into something I had no business touching, something that could ruin everything. The next few days were rough. I couldn't look at Sean without feeling like I was hiding something, like I was carrying this secret that wasn't even a secret. He was the same as always, sprawled on the couch, eating cereal out of a mixing bowl, planning our next night out at some dive bar. But every time he mentioned his mom, I'd tense up, like he was about to call me out, like he could somehow sense the weirdness in my head. "Mom says you should come by again," he'd say, grinning over a beer, oblivious to the way my stomach twisted. "She thinks you're some kind of genius." I'd force a smile, mumble something about being swamped with school, but inside, I was spiraling. I kept thinking about Diane, about that moment in the den, about what she meant when she said those words. Was it just a figure of speech, a quirky way of saying thanks? Or was there something else, something I wasn't supposed to notice but did? I started avoiding anything that reminded me of her, no more trips to their house, no more casual mentions of her chili or her dry humor. I'd change the subject when Sean brought her up, pretend I was too busy to talk. But it didn't help. She was in my head, and I couldn't get her out, no matter how hard I tried. A week later, Sean dragged me to another family thing, a barbecue at their place. I tried to get out of it, said I had a paper due, but he wasn't having it. "Come on, man, you can't ditch me again," he said, his voice half joking but with this edge that made me feel like a jerk, like I was letting him down. I didn't want to go, God, I really didn't, but I couldn't keep making excuses without him getting suspicious. So I went, telling myself I'd stay for an hour, eat a burger, make small talk, and leave before anything could get weird. But the second we walked into the backyard, I saw Diane, flipping burgers on the grill, laughing with Sean's dad about some neighbor's tacky lawn decorations. She looked up, caught my eye, and smiled, not her usual warm, welcoming smile, but something sharper, like she was waiting for me to say something, like she knew I'd been avoiding her. I nodded, looked away quick, and stuck close to Sean, hoping I could just blend into the crowd, disappear into the noise of the barbecue. But I could feel her presence, like a weight in the air, pressing against me. Every time I glanced her way, she was looking back, her eyes steady, unreadable, like she was trying to figure out what I was thinking. At one point, I was grabbing a drink from the cooler, trying to keep my head down, stay invisible. The backyard was loud, kids running around, Sean's cousins arguing over a cornhole game, music blaring from a portable speaker. I thought I was safe, thought I could just grab a soda and slip back into the crowd. But then Diane came over with a tray of buns, her steps light but deliberate, like she'd been waiting for a moment to catch me alone. We were separated from the rest of the party by the cooler, the noise fading into the background for just a second. "You've been quiet," she said, her voice low, like it was meant just for me. I shrugged, my throat tight, and mumbled something about school being hectic, my eyes fixed on the cooler like it was the most fascinating thing in the world. She didn't push, just nodded, setting the tray down, but then she said, "You don't have to hide, you know. I see you." There it was again, that phrase, those words that hit like a punch to the chest. My heart was racing, my palms sweaty, and I mumbled something incoherent, grabbing my drink and practically running back to Sean, my head a mess. Her words stayed with me, looping in my mind, making me question everything. Was she calling me out for avoiding her? Did she know I'd been dodging their house, dodging her? Or was it something else entirely, something I was too scared to name, something that made my chest ache with a mix of fear and something I didn't want to admit? That barbecue messed me up. I couldn't stop thinking about her, about what she meant, about why her words felt like they carried so much weight. I started noticing things I hadn't before, how I'd catch myself wondering what she was doing, if she was at home grading papers or out with friends, if that moment in the den had stuck with her the way it had with me. It wasn't like I was obsessing, not exactly, but it was there, this constant hum in the back of my mind, like a radio station I couldn't turn off. And the guilt was brutal, crushing me from the inside out. Sean was my best friend, the guy who'd been there for me when my parents split, when I flunked my first college exam, when I felt like I was drowning and didn't know how to keep going. He'd trusted me with everything, his secrets, his fears, his dumb dreams about opening a bar someday. And here I was, letting my brain spiral over his mom, of all people, over a moment that probably meant nothing to her but everything to me. I felt like a traitor, not because anything had happened, but because I couldn't stop thinking about it, couldn't stop wondering what "I see you" meant, why it made me feel like I was standing on the edge of something dangerous, teetering between curiosity and regret. Things got worse a couple of weeks later. Sean's sister, Mia, had a school project due, something about building a website for a history class, and she was hopeless with tech, barely able to navigate a browser without clicking something sketchy. Sean volunteered me to help, grinning like he was doing me a favor, saying I was the Wi-Fi wizard, who could fix anything. I wanted to say no, to make up some excuse about a group project or a shift at work, but he was so excited, so sure I'd save the day again, that I couldn't back out without looking suspicious, without making him wonder why I was being so weird. So I went back to their house, my stomach in knots, my palms sweaty before I even got out of the car. I told myself I'd focus on the project, keep it professional, help Mia with her website, and get out as fast as I could. Diane was there when I arrived, sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee, going over some work papers, her glasses perched on her nose. She looked up, smiled, and said, "Back to save us again." It was light, teasing, the kind of thing she'd always say, but there was that look again, that intensity that made me feel like she was seeing right through me, like she knew I'd been avoiding her. I laughed it off, my voice sounding forced even to me, and set up my laptop in the living room with Mia, trying to focus on HTML and CSS, trying to ignore the fact that Diane was in the next room. The project took longer than I expected. Mia kept changing her mind about the design, wanting to add animations 1 minute and then switching to a completely different color scheme the next. I was stuck there for hours, my laptop screen burning my eyes, Mia's chatter about her teacher and her friends fading into background noise. At some point, Diane brought me a glass of iced tea, setting it down on the table with a smile that made my chest tight. "Don't work too hard," she said, her hand brushing mine as she pulled away. It was quick, probably accidental, but it sent a jolt through me, like I'd touched a live wire. I mumbled a thanks, kept my eyes glued to the screen, but my heart was pounding so hard I thought Mia might hear it. Diane didn't linger, just walked back to the kitchen, but I could feel her presence, hear her moving around, her voice carrying as she talked to Sean's dad about some work thing. It was like my senses were tuned to her, picking up every little sound, every shift in the air, and I hated it. I hated how aware I was of her, how I couldn't focus on the code in front of me without wondering what she was thinking, what she saw when she looked at me. When I finally finished the website, it was late, the sky outside dark, the house quiet except for the hum of the dishwasher. Mia was thrilled, practically bouncing as she showed the site to her dad, who gave me a nod and a "nice work, kid." Sean insisted I stay for dinner, saying it'd be rude to leave without eating, and I didn't have the energy to argue. Saying no felt like it would raise red flags, make them wonder why I was so eager to bolt. So I stayed, sitting across from Diane at the table, trying not to look at her, trying to act normal. But every time she spoke, asking about the project, joking about Sean's attempt to make garlic bread that ended up charred, I'd feel that pull again, that stupid, reckless curiosity about what she was thinking, what she saw when she looked at me. I kept my answers short, my eyes on my plate, but I could feel her watching me, her gaze like a weight I couldn't shake. After dinner, Sean and his dad got into some heated argument about car repairs, their voices rising as they debated spark plugs or something equally boring. Diane and I ended up alone in the kitchen, cleaning up, me rinsing plates, her loading the dishwasher. I was trying to keep my head down, focus on the soap suds, anything to avoid looking at her. But then she said, "You're good at fixing things." It sounded innocent enough, like a compliment, but her tone was different, softer, like she was saying something else entirely. I glanced at her, just for a second, and there it was again, that look, like she was peeling me apart, seeing things I didn't want anyone to see. "Thanks," I said, my voice hoarse, focusing on the plate in my hand like it was the most important thing in the world. She stepped closer, just enough to make the space between us feel smaller, the air thicker. "I mean it," she said, her voice low, steady. "I see you, you know. Not just the tech stuff. You." My heart stopped. I didn't know what to say, didn't know what she meant, but the way she said it, the way her eyes locked on mine, it felt like a confession, like she was admitting something I wasn't ready to hear. I mumbled something about needing to get home, my hands shaking as I set the plate down, grabbed my stuff, and practically ran out the door, my head spinning, my chest tight with something I couldn't name. That night broke something in me. I couldn't pretend it was nothing anymore. Her words, her looks, the way she seemed to know me, it was too much, too heavy, too confusing. I started pulling away from Sean, not because I wanted to, but because I didn't know how to be around him anymore. Every time we hung out, I'd feel like I was lying to him, like I was carrying this secret that wasn't even a secret, just a moment that had gotten under my skin and wouldn't let go. He noticed, of course. He'd text me, asking why I was being so weird, why I kept bailing on plans. "You good, man?" he'd say, his voice half laughing, half worried, when we'd grab coffee or hit the gym. I'd lie, say I was swamped with school or work, that I was just stressed, but I could tell he wasn't buying it. The guilt was eating me alive, not just because of Diane, but because I was letting my best friend down, pushing him away when he hadn't done anything wrong, when he'd been nothing but good to me. I started avoiding anything that might bring me near Diane. No more trips to their house, no more helping with tech stuff, no more family dinners or barbecues. I'd make excuses: car trouble, a big project, a last-minute shift at the campus bookstore, anything to keep from going back to that house, from seeing her again. But it didn't help. She was in my head, all the time, like a ghost I couldn't shake. I'd catch myself thinking about her at the worst moments, during a lecture, when I was trying to focus on a coding assignment, in the middle of the night when I couldn't sleep, the apartment quiet except for the hum of the fridge. I'd replay that moment in the den, the kitchen, every time she'd said, "I see you," trying to figure out what she meant, what she saw, why it mattered so much. Was she just being kind, seeing me as the helpful kid who fixed their Wi-Fi? Or was it something else, something deeper, something I was too scared to admit? The worst part was, I didn't know what I wanted it to be. Part of me wanted it to be nothing, just a misunderstanding I could laugh off someday, maybe tell Sean about years from now when we were drunk and reminiscing. But another part, this stupid, reckless part one didn't want to acknowledge, wanted it to mean something, wanted to know what she saw when she looked at me, what she was trying to say with those words, that look. The months that followed were a blur of avoidance and guilt. I threw myself into school, picking up extra shifts at work, anything to keep my mind busy, to keep from thinking about her. But it was always there, this low hum of unease, like a splinter I couldn't dig out. Sean and I still hung out, grabbing beers or watching games at the apartment, but it was different. There was this wall between us, one I'd built without meaning to, brick by brick, every time I dodged his invites or changed the subject when he mentioned his family. He'd try to call me out on it, joking at first, saying I was acting like I had a secret girlfriend or some big drama he didn't know about. But the jokes turned serious, his voice sharper, his texts shorter. "What's your deal, man?" he asked one day, cornering me in our living room after I'd bailed on another hangout. He was standing there, arms crossed, his usual grin gone, replaced by this look of frustration, maybe even hurt. "You're acting like I did something to piss you off. What's going on?" I wanted to tell him everything, not the whole truth, because how do you even say it? But something to explain why I was being such a shitty friend, why I couldn't look him in the eye anymore. I wanted to say, "I fixed your Wi-Fi, and your mom said something that's got me all messed up, and I don't know what to do with it." But I couldn't. The words stuck in my throat, too ridiculous, too risky. So I lied, said I was just stressed, that I'd been dealing with some family stuff, that I'd get it together soon. He nodded, but I could see it in his eyes, he didn't believe me, not completely. That was worse than anything, knowing I was hurting him, pushing away the one person who'd always had my back, all because of a moment I couldn't let go of. I saw Diane one more time, a few months later, at a coffee shop near campus. I was grabbing a latte, half asleep after pulling an all-nighter for a midterm, my hoodie rumpled, my eyes burning from staring at my laptop too long. I didn't even see her at first, but then there she was, in line ahead of me, ordering a cappuccino, her hair pulled back, her posture straight like always. My heart stopped, and I thought about bailing, just turning around and walking out before she noticed me. But she turned, saw me, and smiled, that same sharp, knowing smile that made my stomach flip. She walked over, coffee in hand, and said, "Long time no see." Her voice was light, casual, but there was that edge again, that intensity that made me feel like I was under a spotlight. We made small talk, school, Sean, the weather, but the whole time, I was waiting for her to say it again, to look at me like she had before, to drop those words that had haunted me for months. She didn't. She just sipped her coffee, asked about my classes, my plans after graduation, like it was any other conversation. But as she turned to leave, she glanced back, just for a second, and said, "Take care of yourself, okay? I still see you." My breath caught, and I stood there, frozen, as she walked out the door, the bell jingling behind her, leaving me alone with my coffee and a head full of questions. That was it. I haven't seen her since, haven't been back to their house, haven't fixed any more tech problems for Sean's family. I've kept my distance, made sure every excuse was airtight, every reason for staying away plausible. But her words are still with me, like a weight I can't shake, a shadow that follows me everywhere. I don't know what she meant, not really. Maybe she was just being kind, seeing something in me I didn't see in myself, some potential, some spark, some version of me I couldn't recognize. Maybe she was calling out my awkwardness, my avoidance, in her own cryptic way, trying to tell me it was okay to be seen. Or maybe it was something else, something neither of us could say out loud, something that hung in the air between us like a storm waiting to break. The not knowing is what kills me, what keeps me up at night, what makes me flinch every time Sean mentions his family. It's like I'm stuck in that moment in the den, her eyes on me, her voice cutting through the noise, saying words I can't decode. I can't tell Sean, not because anything happened, but because the truth would sound insane. "Hey, I fixed your Wi-Fi, and your mom said something that's got me questioning everything." Yeah, that'd go over great. He'd laugh it off, or worse, he'd look at me like I'd lost my mind, like I was making something out of nothing. And maybe I am. Maybe I've built this whole thing up in my head, turned a throwaway comment into a mystery that doesn't exist. But it doesn't feel that way. It feels like I'm carrying something, a secret that's not even a secret, a guilt that doesn't have a name. I'm still Sean's friend, still answer his texts, still meet up for beers when I can't avoid it, but there's this distance now, this thing I can't explain. Every time I see his name pop up on my phone, I feel it again, that pang, that fear that he'll somehow know, that he'll see through me the way she did. I see Diane in my head, hear her voice, and I wonder what she saw, what she meant, if I'll ever know. Maybe she was just being nice, just trying to make me feel good about myself. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, turning a nothing moment into something it's not. Or maybe she saw something in me, a crack, a flaw, a truth I'm too scared to face, and called it out in a way I can't ignore. Here's the twist, nothing happened. Not really. No lines were crossed, no secrets were spilled, no dramatic confessions in the rain. It was just a moment, a look, a phrase that got under my skin and stayed there. But it feels like everything did, like that one afternoon in the den changed something I can't undo. I'm still trying to figure out what she meant, why it matters, why I can't let it go. I keep wondering if I should have said something, called her out, asked her what she meant by, "I see you." I wonder if I'm a terrible friend for letting this mess with my head, for letting it come between me and Sean, for not being able to just move on. Most of all, I wonder if I'll ever stop feeling like I'm hiding something, even if I don't know what it is. So, tell me, have you ever felt someone saw through you in a single moment? Have you ever had a look, a word, a glance that changed everything without changing anything at all? What would you do if a simple task turned into something deeper, something you couldn't explain? Drop it in the comments, because I'm still lost in this, still trying to make sense of it, still wondering if I'll ever find my way out. And if you think a single moment can unravel everything, hit that like button. Thanks for listening to my mess. It's been eating me alive, and I don't know if I'll ever figure it out.